Welcome back. In our previous lessons, we explored if, elif, and else conditional statements for handling multiple conditions. While they are good to work with and they work well, handling many conditions can make your code long and harder to read. So, starting with Python version 3.10, there is a better way to handle such cases with the match case statement. This provides a clean way to handle multiple conditions in a better way. Imagine you are working at a post office and then you are sorting mails. If the mail is for New York, it goes into one box. If it's for California, it goes into another box. So instead of checking every state one by one, you have labeled boxes to match the mail. This is what match case does. It matches values to predefined cases. The match case statement is a way of implementing pattern matching in Python. It simplifies multi-condition logic. As you can see from the syntax, the match keyword checks the value of a variable against the patterns in each case. Okay, so any of the case that matches the variable, that is the block of code that will be executed. The underscore is like a wildcard that acts like a default case if no pattern is matched. That is, if none of the case matches the variable, so the block of code in the underscore pattern will be executed. It's like the default case to be executed if none of the patterns matches the variable. So it is just like the else statement in an if statement. The else statement is the one that will be executed if the condition is not true. For example, let's say we want to create a program that prints the start of the week if the weekday is Monday, and then it prints weekend if day of the week is either Saturday or Sunday, and then for every other day of the week it prints it's a regular weekday. So for this, we can use a match case statement to implement this. Okay, so to implement a match case statement, you first start with the match keyword. All right. Okay, so now let's get the day of the week from our user. So we can use input to get that. So we can say day. Okay, so day is going to be input. Then we tell our user to enter the day of the week. All right. So enter day of the week. Okay, so we are going to use the Lua method to convert whatever input the user gives to us. We are going to convert it all to lowercase. Okay. So now we are going to say match. Now after match, we are going to have our variable. Okay. So inside of the match statement, we are going to have different cases. Okay. So we are going to say case. The first case is going to be if the input provided by user is Monday. All right. So each of these cases will be the possible value of our variable. In front of the match keyword, we are going to have our variable. So each of the cases will be the possible value of our variable. So if the variable is matching this case, then that means the block of code inside of this case will be the one that will be executed. So we are going to print, if the day is Monday, we are going to say it's the start of the week. All right. So if the weekday is either Saturday or Sunday, so we are going to say case. Okay, so we are going to say if it is Saturday, right? So if in this case, we're going to print it's the weekend. I'm going to say, okay, it's the weekend, right? So this is also what we're going to do if it's also Sunday. So I'm just going to copy that, right? So I'm just going to copy that and then change this to Sunday. Okay, so it's the weekend. All right, so for every other day of the week, we are going to say it's a regular weekday. Since we have Tuesday, we have Wednesday, we have Thursday, we have Friday. So for all of that, we are going to use the default case. So we are going to say case, and the default case is the underscore. It's like a wildcard that matches every other condition that is not stipulated in any of these cases. So we are going to print, I'm going to say it's a regular, okay, this is going to be regular weekday. Okay, all right. So if we run this now, I'm going to pass a prompt to our user. So let's say the user provides Monday. Let me use Monday with package M. So I'm going to see it's the start of the week. Let's run it again. So I'm going to provide Saturday. Okay, so it's the weekend. Then let me run it again. I'll provide, let's say Thursday. All right. So we're going to have, it's a regular weekday. You can see this is a much better form than writing if statement. So for this now, you are going to have if day equals Monday, print this. Else if day equals Saturday, print this. Else if day equals Sunday, print this. Else if days equals Tuesday, print this. So okay, let's just do that quickly. So what I will see, okay, so to implement this using if statement, we are going to have if, so we are going to say day equals, okay, so it's going to be Monday, right? So I'm going to have print, okay, I'm going to copy this, all right? Let me just paste this here, okay? So we are going to do this for Tuesday, for Wednesday, for Thursday, for Friday. So you can see that's a long process. So I'm not going to do all of that. So doing this with if and else statement is going to be a long journey because you are going to say for Monday, for Tuesday, for Wednesday, for Thursday, for Friday, for Saturday, and for Sunday. So match case is a better way of implementing multi-condition statement, okay? And for cases like this, now for cases like Saturday and Sunday that we are implementing the same logic, so we can use a combining statement. So to do that, we can get rid of this since we are executing the same code. We are printing it's the weekend. So we can combine them, and to combine our cases like this, we are going to use pipe, a pipe character. So we are going to say, so this is going to be Sunday. So now this case, this block of code will be executed if the variable is either Saturday or Sunday, right? So let me run this now. So let me first provide Saturday. Okay, if I run that, it's the weekend. If I run that again, I can as well run it again here. So let me provide Sunday. You can see it's the weekend. So use this pipe character to combine two cases in a match case. With match case statement, we can also have something called guard clause. Guard clause is a condition that must be true for this case to match. If the condition is true, the associated block runs. If the condition is not true, that means the associated block will not run. Okay, so let's have an example so that we can see guard clause in action. Okay, so let's say we want to implement a calculator. So the calculator is going to ask from our user the actual operation they want to perform. We're going to have operation. We're going to ask the user to enter the operation they want to perform. So I'm going to say enter operation. Okay, it is going to be operation. All right. So we're asking the user to enter the operation they want to perform. The operation can be add, it can be subtract, it can be divide, right? It can also be multiply, right? Multiply. Okay, so let me close the parentheses. I'm going to close that and then a colon. Okay, so that's the operation you want to perform. Then we're going to have two numbers. We can call that num1 and num2. Okay, so we can say num1 is equal to, okay, I'm going to have the int function to convert the string that we're going to get from the input to an integer. So I'm going to say enter the first number, okay, enter the first number. So we're going to have a colon. Then after that, we're going to have num2, which is the second number. We are going to have integer likewise, and we are going to have the input. Okay, we are going to ask the user to enter the second number. All right, just so we can see guard clause in action. Now we're going to have a match case statement. So we will be matching the operation. Okay, so operation now is a variable. So the first case is going to be add. So if the user wants to perform an addition operation, so if the user passes add, we can as well turn this to lowercase in case the user input with uppercase. So this lower method is going to convert it to lowercase. All right. So if the case is add, if the operation is add, then we are going to print Okay, so we can print, let's say result. Okay, we are going to say result is equal to, so we are going to have num1 plus num2. Okay, so we have num1 plus num2. Okay, now the next case is going to be subtract. I'm going to have subtract. Okay, subtract. Okay, so if it is subtract, we are going to print. I'm going to say results. So we can say result is going to have a comma. So we have num1 minus num2. Okay, so let's do multiplication. Let's do multiplication, multiply, right? Okay, so if the operation is multiplied, then we are going to print. So we have result. Okay, we have this, then we have a comma. I'm going to have num1 multiplied by num2. All right, now this is where we want to use a guard clause. So if the case is divide, so we have divide, the case is divide. Now to use guard clause, you are going to have an if keyword. So this condition is going to match only if this condition is true. Now the condition we want to say now is if num2 is not equal to 0. Because if you want to divide a number by 0, you are going to run into error. So we are going to say if num2 is not equal to 0. So this is going to guide our operation against 0 division error. If you try to divide any number by 0 in Python, you're going to run into error. So now if num2 is not equal to 0, that's when we are going to perform action. So we are going to say result. Okay, so we have result is num1 then divided by num2. Okay, so we are going to have a default, that is the wildcard case. So we are going to have, we are going to print. So this is we can say invalid operation. We can say division. So we have division by 0 is not possible, right? Okay, so this is what we call guide clause with match case statement. This case will only match if this condition is true, but if the condition is false, that means the case will never match. All right, so let's run this now. Let's first test it with an addition operation. So we have add. So enter first number, let's say 2, and then the second number, let's say 3. Okay, so result is going to be 5 for addition operation. Now let's try with division operation. So we have divide, right? Divide, okay. So enter the first number, 2. Now let me enter 0, okay, so that this condition will be false, because this condition will be true only if num2 is not equal to 0. But as soon as num2 is 0, that means this condition will be false. And in that case, this case will not match the variable. So this block of code will not run. Okay, so let me enter that. Now you have invalid operation. Division by 0 is not possible, which is the default operation we are performing here. Okay, so let me show you the 0 division error by Python. So let's say we want to perform an operation. Let's say we want to print. Okay, let's say we want to print 2 divided by 0. If you try to run that, I'm going to run into error. So in Python, you cannot divide a number by 0. Okay, so you are going to run into 0 division error. And I think in your mathematics, if you try to divide the number by 0, it's either it is impossible or you are going to have infinity. Okay, so Python is guarding against that error. That is guide clause in action. Guide clause only allows a case to match the variable if the condition is true, right? Another thing with match case is we can also use guide clauses with temporary variable. Okay, so that we see that in action. Let's get rid of all this. Okay, so let's say we are implementing a grading system that grades students with respect to their score. So we can get the score of the students. So let's say this is equal to integer to convert the input to a string. So we can say enter your score, right? Okay, so we have a colon, the space. All right, so we're going to have a match case. So we're going to have score. right? So inside of that, we're going to have case. So we can use guide clauses with temporary variables, right? So now we are going to have a temporary variable here. Let's call it else s. All right. We are going to say this block of code should run if s is greater than or equal to 90. So we're going to say if s is greater than or equal to 90. All right. So we're going to print if, that means if the score is greater than or equal to 90. So we're going to print, let's print grade A for the student, right? So we have grade A. All right. Now we have another case. Case, we see case S. If S is greater than or equal to, we can say that is, or let's say 80. Let's say 80. Then we're going to print. Okay, so we're going to print grade B. All right. So we can implement that for other cases. So I'm going to copy that. So I'm going to paste here. Okay. So let me have two more for, that's going to be C, this is going to be D. I'm going to have E. Let me just go straight to F for that case. All right. So if this is greater than 70, we're going to say C. Okay. If this is greater than 60, okay, so we are going to have what? Let's have D. All right. Let me use capital letter D. All right. So anything below that, we're going to have F. So we are going to use a wildcard pattern for that, which is our underscore. So we are going to say grade F. All right. Now, as you can see, this S is a temporary variable. There is no S defined anywhere in our code. So we use this guide clause to create this temporary variable. So the temporary variable is going to stand in for score. So if score is greater than 90, we have grade A. If score is greater than 80, we have grade B. If it is greater than 70, we have grade C. If it is greater than 60, we have grade D. So we use guide clause to work with temporary variable. Now, if we run this, it's going to ask for our score. Let's say our score is 80. All right. So you see we have grade B. S is not defined anywhere in our variable in our code. So we have S as a temporary variable, and it is made functional with the guide clauses. So guide clause is used to match a case if the condition is true. Sometimes some programmers still prefer to use multiple if and else statements. So it most times comes down to your choice. However, match case is more cleaner and more readable than multiple if, elif, and else statements. So what are the things that you should note when working with match case statements? You should always include the wildcard pattern, that is your underscore, to match unexpected input from your user. And you should also avoid overly complex conditions whenever you are using guide clauses. Let your guide clauses be simple and clear, all right? And to use match case, make sure that the Python version you are working with is either 3.10 or later. If you use early versions than 3.10, match case is not existing on those versions, so you might run into error. Okay, so that will be all for this lesson. I will see you in the next lesson.